Joe.
Blacula.
W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser. Come on up to modern times. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Elijah Muhammad. Whenever a strong black leader emerged, the press, hear me well, which is the instrument of governmental authority and a leader in oppressing the masses, went to work to discredit the leadership. It's not an accident that in the Virgin Islands you're supposed to be an independent group of people, thinking people, but somebody else controls your press. In Jamaica, Jamaica's supposed to be free. Somebody else controls the press. Anytime somebody else controls your television, your means of communication to the world, they fashion your mind, shape you, mold you. These are instruments of Satan. Listen to me good now. Hear me out. By the time you get up to school, you are so thoroughly messed up in your head. Then they bring you to church and finish you off. What did you say, Farrakhan? Are you against religion? Of course not. I am a religious person, a spiritual person. But I know that religion has failed the people. I know that education has failed the people. I know that government and politics has failed the people. I know that everything that goes to nurture the people has left the people in a state of animal existence. How in the hell then can you say you are a nurturer of the people when the people are worse today than they were when they were sperm? When you were sperm, you had more will than you have now as a so-called developed human being. We represent an opposing vision. We represent an opposing idea. Men and women have died for this vision. Marcus Garvey was deported for speaking a vision. Noble Drew Ali was killed for speaking a word that would bring vision. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were assassinated because they spoke a word that would give vision to a people. On the African continent, Patrice Lumumba is dead because of a vision. All of your great African revolutionary leaders that have laid down their lives, it was not the way they parted their hair. It was not the tribe that they belonged to. It was not their language. It was not their religion. It was their vision. What was seen in their vision that made the powers of Europe and America decide that these revolutionary freedom fighters must be persecuted, imprisoned, deported, or killed? It is because they dared to come out from under the vision that guides the present world. And what is the vision that guides America? What is the vision that guides Europe? What is the vision that guides the ruling powers of the world? The vision that guides the ruling powers of the world is that the darker people of the world must always be under the foot of Europe, under the foot of white people, because the prevailing idea at the root of that vision is the idea of white supremacy. Are you angry with me? Are you frightened? Don't be frightened. The vision of white control, dominance over all the darker people of the earth under the idea of white supremacy has poisoned religion, has poisoned economics, has poisoned the social environment. It has poisoned education. So even though we go to church and claim to be saved, our vision is to uphold white supremacy. Even though we go to college and get all of the degrees from the universities of higher learning, those degrees bear witness that we have learned what scholarship of the world has imparted to us, but at the root of that scholarship is the vision of this world and the idea of this world, and that is that no black man should ever be able to challenge white supremacy and survive. You may not like what I'm saying, but Africa, oh, Mother Africa, unless you and I are freed from the vision of the old world and from submission to the old idea, and unless a new vision and a new idea is birthed into us, we will never realize the freedom that we desire. We will never realize not the political independence, because political independence without economic self-sufficiency is symbol without substance. You have the symbol now, we must get the substance. If you say you're free and you fly your flag and you sing your national anthem, but you cannot eat, you do not have food, you do not have adequate roads, adequate transportation, communication, you are not able to do for yourself, then what good does it do us to say we're free and we're free and hungry, free and naked, free and out of doors, free and ignorant, free and a social degenerate? This is not true freedom. True freedom gives you political independence. True freedom gives you spiritual independence. True freedom then allows you to create the means for your physical sustenance, that you should never be a beggar at the foot of other nations, but you should be able to make a future for ourselves. Thank you. In closing, let me say how happy and honored I am to be here with one whom we affectionately call Mommy, who is the mother of a great struggle. And I would hope and pray that in this truth and reconciliation process, that the oppressed who fought the oppressor doesn't become the victim of a process that is supposed to bring peace and reconciliation, but could be used to sully the reputation of a warrior for justice for our people. We're not saying that in the struggle we don't make mistakes, but the oppressed in the scheme of reconciliation must not bear the burden of such horror, I would say, as the 9 days that Mrs. Mandela went through, and Mr. Botha can thumb his nose at such Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and it appears as though nothing may happen. This is wrong. And the last point I would mention, governments legalize killing. That is why we went to war in Korea, because our government said democracy was threatened and sent soldiers to Korea to kill. And I'm sure the soldiers killed as many Koreans as were in front of them. And because they killed many, they got medals for killing. It seems as though governments can legalize murder even though the soldiers don't really know why they're fighting. We went to war in Vietnam, and bombs and death and destruction was rained down on a people because our government legitimized murder. And when we come home after killing many innocent people whom we did not know, legalized because our government said so. Now here we have in South Africa a situation where a legal government is illegally oppressing and suppressing the rights of a black majority. And if that black majority fights that government because of its deprivation of their natural rights by divine, and killing is done, now all of a sudden these that fight the oppressor must suffer while the oppressor can say, "I'm sorry," and go free. This is not right. This is why you had a Nuremberg trial after the war, that those who were criminals could be brought to justice. Those who fight for justice are not criminals. Those who fight against the oppressor are not criminals. They are fighting for the rights that God has said each human being deserves. So we've got to look at what we're doing and the motivation for what we're doing. Is it politically motivated? Is it designed to destroy her credibility so that she might not be a political force in this country for genuine change? If that is so, let's reconstruct. Let's have a genuine peace and truth and reconciliation commission. May God bless South Africa to find the path to real reconciliation, because this country could lead the whole of Africa into its greatness if real peace, real reconciliation were to take place. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Allah bless you. So they tell you, look, if you want to be respected, if you want the people to recognize you, you must not be a farmer. You must come and get an education and be a doctor and be a lawyer. So you can be a magistrate in the court. So you can, be a doctor, and you can be a teacher and teach at the University of the West Indies. Meanwhile, they pull you away from the land. Then they make you think that there's something unworthy in being a farmer. The earth and the farm is the engine of your life. And whenever somebody else masters the earth under your foot, where your mouth is in their kitchen to feed your stomach, then you are a slave all over again. And throughout the Caribbean, you live on rich land. This land is so rich, you could almost go out and spit and a plant grow. I'm exaggerating, but it's true. Jamaica, where I just left, that's my father's home, rich land, but I went in the supermarket and all the food is imported from someplace else. Very little is grown in Jamaica. I was in the Virgin Islands. Beautiful land. Could grow anything to feed the people. But the people are not being fed from their own soil. They are being fed through big supermarkets that are bringing food in from America, from Canada, from New Zealand, from other places, all because you don't recognize that in order to be free, you must feed your own stomach. That's law number one. Therefore, if the government of Barbados is serious about independence, this being an agrarian, society, then agriculture must be developed so that food from Barbados can be on the table of every Barbadian. Then you will never have to pay the price for food that you are paying, which is higher than people are paying someplace in New York and other places in the country. You are just buying what somebody else produces, and then they sell it back to you so that it keeps you in a cycle of poverty where you work, you get the money in one hand, and you pay it out to the man who is smart enough to sell you your processed food. That's a sin. And that sin the Caribbean is guilty of.
What is your relation now to the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, principally those contained in his book, Message to the Black Man in America? That book has some pretty harsh things to say. It says that the white race was created by the evil scientist, Jacob.
It didn't say evil scientist, it said a scientist.
A scientist, but certainly his deeds have been evil. Do you believe in Jacob as an historical figure, or is it purely a mythical figure?
I believe that Jacob is a reality.
It was a reality?
Yes.
A real person?
Yes. The white man is real.
Yes.
And his reality...
It was through Jacob's experiments that the white race came?
Yes.
You still believe that?
Of course.
Mr. Farrakhan?
Yes. And I don't see any geneticist, any biologist, any anthropologist who is serious about their work,
yes,
who denies that the origin of all human life comes from the original man or the original woman who are African
Yes.
or black.
The blacks, yeah.
Well, the question then becomes, if all of the colors, all of the members of the human family came from this one member, the question is, by what method did they come into existence?
Yes.
And what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was showing us was the method by which whites came into existence. And he said it was a method of birth control that involved the killing of the darker, the saving of the lighter, the marrying the lighter on to the lighter, until you had a brown civilization, then a yellow civilization, then a white civilization of people with pale skin and blue eyes and blonde
So
hair.
essentially, Jacob was carrying out experimentation. He was experimenting with a new creation.
You
He was
know,
a scientist who was carrying out these experimentations.
I think that if we look at it as science rather than evil, then we come closer to the truth.
But what scientific evidence could there be for this Jacob? I mean, outside of the Nation of Islam, one knows nothing of him. You spoke at the national arena about the importance of taking people away from ignorance, away from superstition. And yet your continued belief in Jacob seems to be nothing else but that.
Well, you know, you as a black man can't argue effectively for white people. Why don't you bring a white man here and let him argue with me about his origin in the world? Here's a man that could tell you were descendants from ape.
Yes.
And you never argued.
And I would
with him.
condemn him for that.
But you
It would
did.
be equally obscurantism.
But
I would not
wait,
want to
wait.
replace a black obscurantism with white obscurantism.
But, sir, with all due respect, there's more evidence, empirical evidence, to prove that the white man came from us.
Yes.
And since their own scientists agree with that, but they're not talking about what was the method by which he came.
But the controversy is the method.
Exactly.
As to whether, I mean, Leakey and others, and other anthropologists might agree with that. But as to the method by which the white man came, that is where you have moved from science. I'm suggesting to you that you have moved from science into religious myth.
No, not at all. Home. Now the question to Bermudians is, if this is your home and we are the descendants of slaves and then under colonial power, do the colonial masters want us to become masters of our destiny? Or do the colonial powers wish that we as black people stay in a subservient, dependent position? So if jobs are not available to God, God ain't looking for a job. God has the ability to say kun fayakun, meaning be, and it is. You got that same power to say, I want something. I'll say be in my mind. I'll organize myself and the things around me and accomplish my objective in life. But what has happened to us, we've been given an inferior education. And most of us don't know who we are, so we don't love ourselves. So Jesus said it like this: you gotta love your neighbor as yourself. Well, if I'm from 42nd Street and my brother's from Parkside and my other brother is from St. George's and my other brother is from Somerset, and I don't see him as my brother, I'm defining him by where he lives, not by who he is in relationship to me. 42nd Street didn't give you birth. Parkside didn't give you birth. Somerset and St. George's didn't give you birth. It is your creator that gave you birth, and 42nd Street didn't breathe into you the spirit that gave you life. That is your creator that did that. So why would you limit yourself to a little small part of a small island? And so if I'm in Somerset, I can't come to 42nd Street, and you can't come to Somerset, and we've made each other enemies. Well, wait just a minute. Who benefits from us fighting one another? Are you the beneficiary? Am I? Is your wife a beneficiary? Some of you have children. Are your children the beneficiaries of the fight that's going on in the streets of Bermuda? No.
But the shame of America is the Native Americans who live on reservations, who are fed alcohol and drugs, whose women are sterilized so they can't produce more children. The shame of America is the black people who were kidnapped and brought from Africa to be made slaves, living in ghettos after we built America, fought, bled, and died to keep America strong. Yet our people are dying in the streets from neglect. This is the shame of America. And the Aborigines are the shame of Australia. How can you say you are a Christian country? How can you claim the Lord Jesus Christ and leave human beings in the condition that I saw the other part of my family today? You say, Farrakhan, you're a Muslim. You should not instruct Christians. I am from Allah. And Allah is the instructor of all of his creatures. Now take some instructions, Christian. They came to Jesus. And they said to Jesus, Master, when were you hungry and we fed you not? When were you naked and we clothed you not? When were you out of doors and we gave you not shelter? When were you sick and imprisoned and we ministered not unto you? And Jesus said unto them, inasmuch as you have not done these things unto the least of these my brethren, you have not done it also unto me. Human beings like to look after people of power, people of fame, people of fortune, but they walk by the poor and the weak in every society as though they are worthless human beings. If you, Australia, are real Christians, then the shame of the Aborigines is a sacred mission that you and we should correct. I'm going to say it again. The shame of the condition of the Aborigines is the mission of the Christians, but it is also the mission of the Muslims. And what about the Jews? Don't you have a mission too? Did not Allah find you enslaved and sent you a prophet? Did not he find you down and send you a prophet to lift you up? Have you forgotten that it is also your duty to lift up those that are fallen? Don't say that I am anti-Semitic, because I am critical of aspects of your life that God himself is displeased with. I am not seeking friendship or favoritism with this world. I want to be the friend of Allah. And if Allah is my friend and I am Allah's friend, who then can harm me if I am in the bosom of Allah?
But the warmongers in America knew that if this dissatisfaction that exists in Syria, in Lebanon, in Libya, in Somalia, in Sudan, and right here in Iran could be organized and poisoned to make a revolutionary or a counter-revolutionary force to destroy the fruit of the great revolution of Imam Khomeini and the Iranian people.
اما جنگ طلبان آمریکایی به این میاندیشند که چنین نارضایتی مثلا در سوریه، لبنان، لیبی، سومالی، سودان و حتی ایران اگر سازماندهی بشه و زهرآلود بشه، این میتواند منجر شود به ایجاد یک نیروی انقلابی و یا نیروی ضد انقلابی که منجر بشه از بین بردن ثمره انقلاب امام خمینی و مردم ایران.
We believe that 9/11 and the destruction of the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, not destruction of the Pentagon, but the bombing of it, all of this was a false flag operation that was done to anger the American people and then direct that anger against Islam growing in America and to make the world to hate the religion of Allah, the religion of peace, the religion of truth, the religion of Islam.
آن حادثه 11 سپتامبر که در آمریکا رخ داد منجر به فرو ریختن برج‌های دوقلو و حمله به پنتاگون شد. این در حقیقت یک عملیات دروغین و گمراه کننده بود برای اینکه مردم آمریکا را عصبانی بکنند و این عصبانیت اونها رو کانالیزه کنند برای حمله به اسلامی که در آمریکا در حال رشد و اشاعه بود و از این طریق در دل مردم نفرت در قبال دین الله و دین صلح و اسلام ایجاد بکنند.
Look at what happened now in Iraq. After we were told that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and lies were told before the UN Security Council, America and others went to war with Iran. With Iraq, but they're already at war with Iran. We'll get to that. They bombed Iraq and they called it shock and awe, killing tens of thousands of Iraqi people, even though 500,000 children lost their lives under the sanctions that America had placed on Iraq, only to find that there were no weapons of mass destruction. It was a lie that gave America a pretext and a pretense to come into Iraq after Iraqi oil.
خب ببینیم واقعا در عراق چه اتفاقی افتاد. اونها مدعی شدن که صدام حسین سلاح‌های کشتار جمعی در اختیار داره و جلسه رو در همین ارتباط در شورای امنیت سازمان ملل تشکیل دادن و منجر شد به حمله آمریکا و دیگران به عراق. اونها عراق رو بمباران کردن تحت نام عملیات شوک و بیم و ده ها هزار نفر از مردم عراق رو کشتن. 500,000 کودک در عراق جانشون از دست دادن به خاطر تحریم هایی که آمریکا علیه عراق اعمال کرد و نهایتاً هم سلاح‌های کشتار جمعی در اونجا پیدا نشد، بلکه این مسئله تبدیل به یک دروغی بود که تبدیل به یک بهانه‌ای شد برای آمریکا که بتونه بره به عراق و بپردازه به در واقع چپاول نفت عراق.
I visited Iraq 3 days before the first war. There were Sunni, there were Shia, there were Coptic Christians and other denominations of Christianity. There were Jews. We visited the mosques of the Shia and the Sunni. We saw the churches and the synagogue. But there might have been tensions, but no Muslim's mosque was ever bombed until Satan came in. Make no mistake about it, you are not dealing with people who have any righteousness and decency in them. So whenever you say, Kul a'udhu billahi minash shaitan irrajim, you are seeking refuge against a real satanic power that the Middle East now is feeling the consequences of the involvement of the West now intimately in your personal affairs.
3 روز قبل از جنگ اول عراق من در اونجا بودم و دیدم مسلمانان سنی، شیعه و مسیحیان کپتیک و دیگر فرق مسیحی، یهودیان و از مساجد شیعیان و سنی ها بازدید کردیم که کنیسه ها بازدید کردیم. اما در اون زمان خب یه سری در واقع تنش‌های وجود داشت، اما هیچ موقع یک مسجد بمبگذاری نمیشد تا زمانی که شیطان وارد این منطقه شد و شما در واقع با کسانی که یک مقدار راستی در وجودشون باشه روبرو نیستید و همونطور که میگوید قل اعوذ بالله من الشیطان الرجیم، شما در واقع پناه میبرید به خدا از شر شیطانی که ما این نیروهای شیطانی رو میبینیم الان در خاورمیانه وارد شدن و در امور کشورها، حتی در امور شخصی افراد هم غرب در حال دخالت کردن و مداخله هستش.
The suffering in Iraq is real. The divisions are real. The poison between Shia and Sunni and Christian and Jew is real. And now watch Iraq, and it is almost now a failed state.
آن رنج و مشکلاتی که در عراق هست جدی هست. شما می‌بینید که در واقع تفرقه و جدایی در اونجا واقعا وجود داره و این اختلافاتی که بین شیعیان و سنی‌ها و مسیحیان و یهودی‌ها وجود داره و در واقع عراق تبدیل شده به یک کشور از بین رفته و ناتمام.
After Syria, look at Lebanon, look at Libya, the destruction of Muammar Gaddafi, his revolution. A brilliant work was done in Libya by Muammar Gaddafi, but when he came in out of the cold and gave up his weapons of mass destruction, thinking that he would make a friend out of Bush and the American people, I warned him that they will never be his friend. They will never accept his friendship, and they would work to destroy his revolution and ultimately destroy him as well. And history says that my warning to him is correct. Gaddafi is dead. Libya is now a failed state. It has been absolutely destroyed, and it is now the home of ISIS, ISIL, Al-Qaeda, and every form now of anti-American and anti-Islam behavior.
بعد از سوریه ملاحظه بفرمایید لبنان رو و بعد لیبی رو. خب در لیبی اینها قذافی رو در واقع از کار سرنگون کردن و قذافی انقلابی که در لیبی انجام داده بود کار درخشانی بود و زمانی که اون سلاح‌های کشتار جمعیش رو از اون سلاح‌ها دست کشید و فکر کرد که میتونه با بوش دوست باشه، من به اون هشدار دادم که آمریکایی‌ها هیچ موقع دوست تو نخواهند بود و دوستی تو رو نمیپذیرن و آمریکایی‌ها هم تلاش کردن که انقلاب قذافی رو از بین ببرن و تاریخ نشان میدهد که هشدار من به قذافی هشدار درستی بوده و الان لیبی یک کشوری هستش که خب قذافی مرده، لیبی هم یک کشوری هستش که از بین رفته هستش و الان شده مأمنی برای داعش و القاعده و تمام رفتارهای ضد آمریکایی و ضد اسلامی.
Even though I think I made a mistake saying Bush, but it really was Obama, but Obama is continuing the policies of the neoconservatives that began under George W. Bush.
شاید بهتر بود که میگفتم اوباما، چون اوباما هم داره در واقع سیاست‌های محافظه‌کاران زمان بوش رو استمرار می‌بخشه.
Look at what has happened in Somalia and in the Sudan. And now we come to what is going on in Iran.
و اما ببینید وضعیت رو در سومالی و سودان و حالا میرسیم به آن چیزی که در ایران در حال رخ دادن هست.
As I said earlier, there's a dissatisfied element in every nation. In Syria, it is a dissatisfied element, and America poisoned that stream and fostered a civil war and then blamed Bashar al-Assad for killing his own people. It's the same pretext that they did with Muammar Gaddafi. Fighting out of Benghazi was the dissatisfied element armed and directed by the United States and NATO. Libya is gone. And they hope the same for this great country of Iran.
And this is why, when they wanted to discover the origin of the human being, they did not go to Europe, they came to Africa.
ለዚህም ነው ጥንተ ቅሪተ አካል ለመመርመር ሲፈልጉ ወደ ኤሮፕ ሳይሆን ወደ አፍሪካ መጥተው አርኪኦሎጂስቶች የሚሞክሩት።
They came to Kenya and they found the bones of a human being that they called Zinjanthropus, meaning black man.
ኬንያ ባደረጉት ቅሪተ አካል ሙከራ ዚንጃንትሮፕስ የሚባል ዝርያ አግኝተዋል። ይህ ማለት ጥቁር ሰው ማለት ነው፣ ጥንታዊ ጥቁር ሰው።
But they came to Ethiopia and they found the bones of a black woman, Lucy, 3,500,000 years old. And this is the oldest remains that any archaeologist has ever found. She was a black woman, and you know you couldn't have a black woman unless she had a father.
እንደምታውቁት የዚሁ የጥንታዊ ቅሪተ አካል ፍለጋ ጉዳይ ወደ ኢትዮጵያም ሲመጣ ኢትዮጵያዊቷ ድንቅነሽ የ3.5 ሚሊዮን ሉሲ ወይም ድንቅነሽ የ3.5 ሚሊዮን ዓመታት ያላት ሲሆን ይህች ጥቁር እስካሁን ድረስ የሰው ልጅ በደረሰበት ሁኔታ የመጀመሪያ ጥቁር ሰው ያለ ጥቁር አባት እንዳልተገኘችም የታወቀ ነው።
So, what is the future for you, for me, for our world of Islam?
እና ምንድነው የወደፊቱ ለናንት ለኛ እና በአጠቃላይ ለእስላም ያለው የወደፊት እጣ ፋንታ ምንድነው ይላሉ?
Our children are out of order. Our children have made a world of mischief. Our children have done this because the father has been asleep.
ልጆቻችን ከስርዓቱ ውጭ ናቸው። ልጆቻችን በምን ማድረግ ከሚገባን ውጭ ነው የሚንቀሳቀሱት። ይህንንም እንዲያደርጉ ተደርጎ ነው እየተቀረጹ ያሉት። ይህም የሆነው ወላጆቻቸው እየተኛን ስላለን ነው ይላሉ።
Qiyam, resurrection, is not just talking about life after physical death, but is talking about us coming back to mental life after we have suffered a spiritual death.
ትንሣኤ ማለት የመጨረሻዋን የምናውቀው ቂያማ ብቻ ሳይሆን መንፈሳዊ ሰለባ ተደርጎብን ከቆየው አሁን ካለንበት ሁኔታ መጥቀን መውጣት ነው ትንሣኤ ይላሉ።
So the trumpet of truth is sounding, and the mentally dead must arise. The black man and woman of the earth must rise up into the power of Islam, that we may be Khalifa again.
የምድር እምቢልታ እየተነፋች ነው። እየተነፋች ያለችውም እንደ እስራፊል ማለት ነው። የዚች ምድራዊ ትንሣኤ መቀስቀሻ በመሆን ስለዚህ
The Panama, the isthmus, joins north and south. That means she's very strategic. With the Panama Canal being built here, it connects east and west. The travelers, the nations of the earth, who want to bring their wares to the ports of the world, did not want to travel around the southern tip of South America called the Straits of Magellan, because they're very vicious, those straits, and many times they lost their ships going around the straits. So they decided to build
on the Isthmus of Panama, the Panama Canal. You know historically that the French, who were instrumental in building the Suez Canal, attempted for nearly 20 years to build the Panama Canal. And of course, they could not fight the mosquitoes, the malaria. It proved to be a formidable task. The American ingenuity, technology, decided they would take over where the French left off and build this Panama Canal. But they wanted workers to do the most dangerous and difficult work of building a canal in a jungle, building a canal through rock and mountain. And where did they go for this labor to build the canal? We don't want to give that labor to our own brethren in Europe, because our brethren in Europe will not work for 10 cents an hour. Our own brethren will not work under those hard conditions, so they called on people from Jamaica, Barbados, the Caribbean, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, St. Vincent, and many of your grandparents came to Panama seeking a better way of life. When the Spanish conquered here, the Indians were already here, as they were in Barbados, as they were in Jamaica, as they were in the Virgin Islands. Everywhere the European conquerors went, they found Indians there, blocking them from taking the land. So they set out on a path of genocide to kill off all of the Indians in this area of the world. And they nearly succeeded. The only thing that is left today is a remnant. Nearly 100,000 Indians left here in Panama. The Guaymi, the Kuna, and the Choco, the Arawak, and the Carib Indians have been decimated almost totally in the Caribbean, except for a few that remain in Dominica and a few other islands. After they got rid of the Indians, they needed labor to build up the Caribbean into a paradise for themselves. So the African slave trade began, and your fathers and mine were brought out of Africa on a westerly course and dropped off in the Caribbean. Those that they broke completely were sent on to America, but the strong ones, the ones that resisted, you stayed in the Caribbean. So whether you know it or not, you are from strong stock. You've been under hell almost all your life. And people look at you and wonder how you survive. But if your fathers could survive the middle passage coming from Africa into the Western world, there is nothing that the Caucasian can put on you that will destroy the black man and keep him from surviving. You have survived the worst of it. Now your time has come to rise up and do that which God has commanded you. All praise is due to Allah.
But the Europeans did not want any Muslims in the New World so they killed our fathers and our mothers that they could never teach us Islam.
Но европейцы не хотели, чтобы в новом свете был ислам, поэтому они убили наших отцов и наших матерей, чтобы мы не знали ислама.
We were robbed of our names, our language, our culture, our religion, our history, and our God.
Нас обокрали, нас лишили нашей религии, веры, культуры и нашего Бога.
For 300 years we were sold like you sell horses or cattle or chicken.
300 лет нас продавали, как продают скот или птицу.
We were beaten and hung and killed at the whim of our slave masters.
И нас били, вешали, убивали. Это все делали наши господа.
We were made lovers of alcohol, drugs, and many of our women were turned into prostitutes.
Нас пристрастили, сделали так, что мы приобщились к алкоголю, ко всему нехорошему, женщины стали проститутками.
We were divided one against the other, the lighter against the darker, the north from the south, the east from the west.
Нас поделили по всем признакам, те, кто живет на севере, те, кто живет на юге, и даже по оттенкам кожи.
140 years ago, the Americans decided that we could become Christians.
140 лет тому назад американцы решили, что мы можем стать христианами.
They taught us a corrupted version of the gospel.
И они нам преподнесли коррумпированную и извращенную версию Евангелия.
So in the United States of America, there never was a pure teaching of Torah, a pure teaching of Injil, and the Quran was never taught in the United States of America.
И в Соединенных Штатах Америки никогда не преподавался в чистом виде Тора, и Коран тоже не преподавался.
But a woman from this area of the world gave birth to a son in the holy city of Mecca.
Но женщина из этой области родила человека, из области в Мекке родила сына.
His name, Farad Muhammad.
Его имя Фарад Мухаммед.
He came to America to bring Islam to the blacks.
Он поехал в Америку, чтобы...
Joe.
Blacula.